Ready. Play.
Okay, so we are back with our second contender for 2024 WTA Matches of the Year, and we are discussing Iga Swiatek versus Naomi Osaka at Roland Garros. It was a second round match, and I'm joined by Eddie to go over this match and talk about how we look at it maybe 6 months on. So what were your thoughts going into this match ahead of, it was a big match, like when the draw was made, and how are you thinking after the first round?
Yeah, I mean, obviously heading into this, two huge names. I mean, we don't have to talk about their achievements, but obviously multiple slam winners and very different circumstances for each player, obviously, though, because, Iga was coming into this in superb form, having, continuing her clay greatness, winning those two Masters titles, right? Coming into on the clay. And then, she had a decent first round, I think. So she come through that, and then whereas on the other hand, Osaka is obviously coming back from her time out of the game, and with clay not being her natural best surface, there maybe wasn't massive expectation on her to perform that well here. But having said that, I think coming into it, she'd actually got some decent wins on clay. She beat Marta Kostyuk and Daria Kasatkina before losing to Zhang in Rome. So, pretty good for her. And it did feel like she'd obviously been working on the clay, but perhaps, we didn't quite expect it to turn out how well she performed in that match. And how exciting that match turned out to be.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think there was a lot of hope rather than thought because, Swiatek had pretty much brushed aside, I think it was John in the first round, and Osaka had come through a really tight three-setter with Bronzetti, which was a good win, but it's, coming into it, you're thinking the class difference between Bronzetti and Swiatek is pretty significant. And you're thinking, how can Osaka live with the power and relentlessness of Swiatek on clay, especially at Roland Garros, where she's been so dominant.
And yeah, I mean, that's more or less how I felt. I mean, I guess I was a little bit more hopeful for Osaka in that I didn't think she was going to get blown off the court, because she could do. I mean, obviously Swiatek's capable of doing that even to the best players, but I did feel like it would be competitive. But she ended up being far more competitive than I had expected. And I mean, yeah, I think it deserves to be recognized as one of the best matches of the year, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it had pretty much everything. And when we're starting with the first set, there was some good rallies, some tight games, but it was Swiatek who got the early break. And from my perspective, it kind of felt like it was going towards Swiatek, a sort of straight sets, close but routine win, but obviously did not turn out that way.
Yeah, it was. It was. She went up a fairly early break. I think she went up 3-1. Swiatek, and yeah, you'd be forgiven for thinking, well, she's just going to run away with this again. And we had such hope for Osaka, but to credit to Osaka is that she stayed. She still believed in herself clearly, and she started to play really well. I mean, it was just great to be able to see, obviously we know how good she can be. I mean, I think technically, her strokes and serve and everything, some of the best in the game on her day. And yeah, she sort of stayed with her in that first set and was eventually able to get that break back. I think she broke back eventually. It was at she made it 4-all, right? Was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she was up back on serve, and then she got ahead at 5-4, right? Obviously, at that point, even then, I think you're sort of thinking, well, she's done better than many maybe would have expected her, just to be able to get back in like that and sort of keep it at that stage. And I think when I was, like thinking back, because I hadn't seen the match for a long time until I sort of rewatched it recently. At the time, I sort of felt like in that first set that actually, after Swiatek got up a break, I felt like maybe Osaka was playing better than Swiatek, and to get back into it. But watching it back, I could see that, still actually Swiatek, she was still playing a pretty good level, right? It wasn't like, it was obviously, Osaka got that break back, but it wasn't like she'd been playing exceptionally bad or anything to let her back. So it was just, Osaka was bringing that level there, and it was pretty impressive. But it was still fairly even, I felt like, for most of that first set. I don't know how you felt.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think Osaka breaking back was about a drop in level. I think it was completely Osaka raising her level and really taking it to Swiatek. And I think that was important because we've seen that although Swiatek can be so dominant, when she has lost, it's because a player has really, tried to out-hit her, really tried to go for their shots. And I think Osaka perhaps realised that was her best bet of actually getting anything out of this match. And she did actually have a set point at 5-4 on Swiatek's serve, but didn't take it, obviously, and then it went to a tiebreak.
I think even from that first set, it was clear that, maybe some of the work that she'd done on the clay, because I felt like, she definitely had problems sort of moving on the clay in the past, but like on her lateral movement. And it's difficult when you're playing a player like Swiatek, who, she'll rush you if you get the chance, and she's not going to make it easy for you at all to get in position. But I felt like Osaka was, her shot making was very good, but importantly, she was getting there in time, so that allowed her to stay on top in some of those rallies and finish the points quicker, which was what she was kind of hoping to do. And I think going into that tie break, it felt like, I guess, she had a good chance, because we weren't sure which way it was going to go. But then it went one way, didn't it, in the tie break?
Yeah, it was very one-sided. But like you mentioned, the movement, I did feel like the movement was very apparent at the start of this match, and Osaka did definitely look perhaps a weakness, but throughout the match it became less and less relevant, and it felt like they were on par as such in terms of in that department. And really it does show the work that Osaka has been putting in on the clay in general, and been a lot more committed to playing these tour events on clay.
Yeah, and the tiebreak itself was, I felt like, that was very much Iga showing, why she's been so good. She really stepped up, I felt, in that tiebreak, and took it to Osaka. I mean, sometimes when you watch Swiatek, I feel like she's got like a kind of she's got like a nervous energy about her. But I feel like sometimes when she's like that, she plays really well, actually, and it's at times. So I know maybe other times we say maybe that's where she's actually she's had some of her losses come about for that. But I felt like no, this is one of the moments where she stepped up and she played really well in that tiebreak. And Osaka really never had a look in, really, did she? What was the actual score in that tiebreak? I can't remember.
I think it was 7-1. So it was,
7-1, right? Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I mean, I felt it was more, more about Swiatek stepping it up in that particular tiebreak than Osaka as such, right? But and on that, like, considering that she'd done so well in that first set, Osaka, we really thought like, well, she's maybe going to be a bit deflated going into the second set, but didn't turn out like that at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's completely how I was feeling. I thought, she had a set point and didn't take it, and then got completely brushed
Right.
aside in that tie break. And it kind of felt like, has Osaka's moment gone? But it was completely the opposite. I mean, Osaka was pretty, to put it like, outstanding in that second set and so dominant, really.
Yeah, it was just really shocking and very impressive as well. Just the way that Osaka just stepped up and stayed so positive and then just started, a level of shot making that we hadn't really seen at all since her comeback, for sure. And certainly not, against such an opponent on clay, right? I mean, it was really amazing, some of the shots that she was making, and I feel like it was on both sides, really. Like she was hitting like running forehands, but then also backhands up the line, and like she was so so much power and precision, but also just her timing and technique on those strokes is really impressive to watch when it's in full flow, and she was definitely bringing that for the majority of that second set, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think since Swiatek has become, Swiatek, we know now the dominant force on most surfaces, but particularly on clay and at Roland Garros, I don't think we've ever seen anything like that. I mean, she was completely outplayed, and you would not have known who was the 3-time Roland Garros champion at that point in that match.
And maybe that had shaken her a little bit. I mean, I think maybe her own, shot making, she maybe became a little bit more tentative at times as she went on. But I mean, I think sometimes you have to sort of give credit to the player on the other side of the net because of, they can sort of bring about that in her. But yeah, I felt like maybe at times she was given maybe Osaka a little bit too much time to get it in the hitting zone, and maybe not going out to the corners too much and stuff like that. But yeah, it was just really shocking, and yeah, like I remember feeling really shocked in that second set because of the way Osaka went up, and then obviously, I mean, how many breaks did she get? I mean, she went up and ended up winning that set 6-1, but it was
3 breaks.
3 breaks, right? And yeah, that's just like, it was, I mean, like you said, it wasn't like, it's not something we're ever used to seeing, especially on clay. We're not used to seeing Swiatek looking like that, just like so second best. I mean, it really was just such a dominant performance. And I think it was, her first set point in the end was the one that that Osaka took. I think, she broke in that last game to make it 6-1. And I mean, as we went into the final set, what were you thinking? I mean, maybe Swiatek's going to switch back into gear here, or I mean, I don't know, what were you thinking at that point?
Well, I think I was just a bit like shell shocked. I kind of think that surely Osaka can't keep this up. I mean, she played well in both the first 2 sets, but surely not for a third set. I mean, I was not expecting it to be one-sided like the second set, but I thought if Osaka keeps this level up, then I don't really know what Swiatek can do, and that very nearly was the case.
Yeah, and in that final set especially, although, I mean, Osaka was under pressure, right? Straight away, I think, at the beginning of that third set.
Yeah.
She had to, on her own service games, she had to face break points, right? Multiple break points.
Yeah, 3.
And right, and well, you're thinking like, if Swiatek was to get perhaps an early break, then maybe she could turn her level up and go on to win the match. But it didn't turn out like that. She saved 3 break points, didn't she, in the first game? And that was impressive as well on its own, because obviously you're maybe sort of from her point of view, Osaka, she's thinking, yeah, I'm on top here. But then suddenly you're having that pressure straight away. But then to come through it, even just in that first game, you felt like that was pretty massive. And then she went on to break immediately in the next game after that. And you're thinking, wow, how much is she going to be able to keep this going? It was really quite impressive stuff. I mean, she basically sort of carried on where she left off in that second set, didn't she?
Yeah, she really did. And I mean, you say that obviously she saved 3 break points in that first game, but she also saved a further 5 in her second service game. So she'd saved 8 break points in this first 3 games, and it felt like from that point, like she's doing everything she has to do, and there's nothing that Swiatek can do at that point, because even when she's got the chances, Osaka's getting them, wiping them away, and breaking herself. But yeah, it got to a stage where it was 5-2 in that third set.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? 5 break points in that third set she faced, and then she came through it. And so you're really thinking at that point, like, how well has she been playing? Swiatek must be shell-shocked here. She threw her, some good tennis at her in those games, and Osaka still comes through it. And it's like, you're thinking, surely, I mean, obviously it's still some way to go, but at that point you're thinking, Osaka, surely she's going to come through and perhaps win this set. But yeah, I mean, how are you thinking in that final set about, I mean, how Swiatek was playing? Because it could, it felt like Osaka was she was ahead on the scoreline for quite a while until obviously she was serving for the match, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just like couldn't really believe it, because Swiatek she'd won Madrid, she won Rome, she'd never done that double before. She's so dominant at Roland Garros, and it just kind of feels like, well, she just doesn't lose. She doesn't lose at this tournament ever.
Yeah,
and it was getting to a point where, like, oh, she really might lose, and I can't see a way for her out of this for her. And it was really surprising that it was Osaka to be that player, but it was also exciting, because it was like this is the Osaka we've been waiting for.
Obviously it was fairly early days for her, Osaka, in that comeback, but it was that point you're thinking, well, yeah, exactly, she still has it in her to sort of produce that elite level of tennis, even if she didn't go on and win it here. But I mean, yeah, that's what we're waiting for. And like, I feel like, well, a lot of these guys are women as well, when they have been at the top of the game. I mean, we saw it with, we talk about like Andy Murray, even Andy Murray, when he came back after his hip thing, right? I mean, obviously his level was far diminished, but there's still certain days when he's able to pull off, like, that sort of elite level of tennis. And players that have come, back, they might not come back quite at their best, but they've still perhaps, sometimes got that in their locker to pull off these amazing performances. And I think, like, for Osaka, for sure, I mean, this was a sign that, she does still have that. I mean, at this point, but, still some way to go, even in that set, though. I mean, when she went up that, the break. But, I mean, how do you feel that went, that third set, up until the point of to the point where she was serving for the set? I mean, how, at that point, what were you thinking?
Obviously 5-2 sounds like a big lead, and it is a big lead, but at the end of the day, it was only 1 break. And once Swiatek held to make it 5-3, Osaka was serving for it. It felt like, right, this is it now. I felt as though the match is going to continue as it's gone on, or the last 2 sets. Osaka's just staying strong and holding Swiatek off and taking the match, or this could be the moment where Swiatek really just digs in and turns the match, as we were kind of expecting beforehand. And I can't remember exactly what the point was in this 5-3 game where Osaka was serving for it, but I believe there was a down the line shot. It was a forehand. I think it was a forehand, and it felt like an opportunity, and it went into the net, and that felt like a big turning point.
Yeah, that was it. yeah, so Osaka was serving at 5-3, right? And then obviously Swiatek definitely broke back. But yeah, I think it was at 30-15, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Where
I think so.
30-15, yeah, that's the one that you're talking about she missed. I think that's a huge point and perhaps the most consequential point in that final set because, or of the match even, because, yeah, obviously if you're at 30-15, you win that, you've got 2 match points there, and more likely she takes one of them, right? But then it goes to 30 all, and you're like, well, it's pressure now. But then, yeah, and then it was also, it went to 30 all, and then, yeah, then it was actually Swiatek got a break point, right? And then it had to go on to deuce before Osaka eventually got a match point. And yeah, do you remember what happened in that match point?
To be honest, not really. But I think is, although it looks like, you know, match point, that looks like the big moment where it all went. It always felt like the down the line went into the net at 30-15.
Yeah.
That, I think when you look back, that is the bigger moment, because I think the actual match point wasn't a case of Osaka losing the point. I think that was more a case of Swiatek winning the point.
Yeah. So yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that 15-30, I mean, that's just, it was there for her. I mean, that was like the shorter ball, right? And then she just hit it into the net, and it was just there. The court was open because, like, I think Swiatek had went the other way, right? And that's just, you know, like a rush of blood to the head. I mean, big, huge moment, obviously, and yeah, it happens even to the best, right? But and perhaps that's, you know, because she hasn't been in those situations for a long time, right? To get this, she was on the verge of such a big win. Obviously, she'd done that when she was at the top of her game before her break. But I mean, yeah. I mean, it's understandable to some degree, right? Isn't it, that happens? But I mean, I think it's also why Swiatek, you know, because she was at number 1 in the world, and she's one of the reasons is that she's actually able to handle these moments very well, and she did that in the first set when it came to that tie break. But yeah, obviously Swiatek breaks back, and then we're in a bit of a game again. And I don't know, how do you think it happened? How it went after that? I felt like Swiatek definitely smelled blood, and she sort of raised her level there for sure after that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was like one-sided completely, but it did feel like, kind of felt like after that that match point had gone, it kind of felt like it was Swiatek's from that point. It kind of felt like Swiatek just saw the green light and went, and really she didn't really look back. And I think it was 5 games in a row at the end for Swiatek to take the match, and it kind of just felt like it went so fast for Osaka, like she never really had the chance to recover. And I think when Swiatek's in her full gear, that's what she can do to you, and she just had no time to recover.
At that point, yeah, Swiatek was suddenly feeling good about her game, and then she was like, you know, increasing the pace and some of the depth and just sort of the confidence in her shot making a little bit. And obviously that, I think, had an effect as well on Osaka in terms of, like, you know, she started to make a few errors here and there, like, and she was feeling a bit of nervousness. And yeah, it came to the set at 5-all, right? And that's when Osaka faced 2 break points, and Iga actually took the break on that second break point and then went on to serve for the match. And yeah, the final game went, yeah, fairly straightforward to her. I think she won it from 40-15. She had the match point and she took it. But overall, I felt like it was an amazing period from Osaka in that sort of middle section of the match. And then she'd done well in the first set, although she lost it. But ultimately, it was about, Iga being able to step up in the important periods of the sets, and when it mattered the most.
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. I mean, Osaka won more points in the match. She had a point to win every single set, and only came away with one. And it's just, I think it just kind of proved that tennis is about the big moments, and Swiatek proved really why she is, at the time the world number one, the best player on clay. And I think even, moving ahead the rest of the tournament, it really showed that Swiatek took so much confidence from this match.
Yeah, because this was almost, I mean, people were saying this was like the final in a way, because she didn't drop a set after that, and she really wasn't tested at all. I mean, even maybe the closest match is golf, but she still won, a fairly comfortable straight set. So, I mean, which made it all the more impressive, the way that Osaka managed to play in this match and actually push her that way. And yeah, huge for Swiatek, of course. I mean, because she went on to win the French Open, but for Osaka, I mean, it felt like this was still, even though she didn't win, it was, positive signs for her sort of at this stage in her comeback, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, like you say, Swiatek went on to win without losing a set after this, and it's such a huge like sliding doors moment. Had that forehand gone over the net, and as we were expecting, had she taken the match point, who knows who would have won this French Open? We just don't know. But that is why sport is sport, and it goes on like that. But yeah, I think there was a lot of promise and an excitement about Osaka from this point, and people were like, what could this become now? Like on grass, there was a bit of an unknown quantity, but I think especially the US Open hard court swing, people were thinking like this could be special.
Yeah, and I think for Osaka, for sure, would have given her more determination and confidence sort of going forward. And probably it was, like just, she just maybe hadn't had, those experiences for a while. Obviously, Swiatek is more than used to coming through big matches all the time. And whereas from Osaka's point of view, she hadn't felt those big moments for a long time, and perhaps that was what made the difference. I think, probably she was hoping to be able to build on that going forward. I mean, I feel like though it ended up being unfortunate in the end for Osaka though, didn't she? Because it felt like she was maybe starting to get going. Because there wasn't too much going there and for her in the grass season, but sort of we started, headed into the hard courts again. It felt like, she was starting to get something going, but unfortunately for her, the injury eventually came. But I felt like, in part because of that performance against Swiatek, that, she was starting to build something. I don't know how you felt. Have you been following Osaka?
Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of people had a lot of excitement for the rest of her season, and there were signs. There wasn't like it was nothing after this. There were little signs. I mean, Beijing was perhaps the biggest of those where the injury came, so it's kind of hard to say too much about that. But I think hopefully with a bit of time to recover and a decent off season, I think there's still a lot of promise for Osaka in 2025, and also the US Open. She lost to Mukova in the second round, so it's kind of there's people do lose to Mukova. It happens. It's not like she also beat Ostapenko in the first round, so it's kind of it wasn't a bad season from this point on. I think people just were like expectations were sky high after this match.
Yeah, and perhaps expectations are, somewhat maybe unfairly high because it's Naomi Osaka, right? So multiple Grand Slam champion, and especially in the hard courts, right? So yeah, but she beat the US Open. She beat Yelena Ostapenko, right, in straight sets as well. And I guess obviously she's showing how well she can play against Swiatek. but like, I guess it's a case of, you know, how often can she do that? Obviously, having the injury didn't help, but she was up a set as well, wasn't she, against Coco?
Yeah, and I believe perhaps there's also a break. I don't know.
Yeah, but then she lost that second set and had to retire, right? And
Yeah,
it was,
yeah.
But yeah, it's like when we're talking about sometimes, you know, when we see players come back, they can produce, you know, at a high level in certain days, but maybe not quite as often as they had done before. It's still, I think, looking ahead, say to next year, I still think it's possible that she will be able to find, you know, that's consistent level again. But, you know, it remains to be seen. But I mean, at least I feel like, you know, yeah, certainly in that match and some of against Swiatek, but in some of the other matches, you know, she has shown a high level. So hopefully for her, you know, she'll be able to stay fit and then go into that season next year. You know, getting a lot of matches. I mean, that's what she really wants, is to be fit and be able to play regularly. And I think, you know, then we'll be able to see what her true level is.
Yeah, I think it's almost better that she could have this level occasionally than come back and not be able to find anyone near it at all. At least, you know, there are still flashes of it there at times, even if it's not on a match-to-match basis. But I think as well, what the interesting thing for Osaka is, it's not like we're just waiting for the hardcourt season now. We kind of know that she can show this level on clay. Who knows, maybe on grass at some point as well. But it's not like we're like doing Australia, doing Indian Wells and Miami, and then going, oh, we've got to wait to the US swing.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting, yeah, for sure, to see how she does it. Australia, and then obviously for Swiatek, I mean, the match ended up being significant in that, you know, by far the most difficult match for her in that slam run. And then obviously she goes on to win her fifth slam, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, and then, now obviously she's had, we talk about, you know, Swiatek's had her issues recently with the suspension and obviously having to skip that Asia swing because of that. But I mean, I guess we didn't think then maybe that, you know, that was because, you know, after that particular tournament, she just played. I mean, she kind of had a bit of a dip really, because I mean, she didn't really play any finals after that, did she? I don't think she had played a final after that. So it ended up being, you know, the last tournament she won, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And yeah, it definitely felt like the peak of her season, because the first half of her season was so strong, and it after this point it didn't really live up to that.
Yeah, just hoping for both of them. Yeah, no disruptions, no injuries, and no or any other issues that, you know, are going to keep them off the court. So, because if they do get to play each other again, we're going to be, well, I will be quite excited to see how they get on, especially if it's on a hard court. I think that could be really interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think that's how a lot of people feel, because I think hard court is where I think the most even in terms of expectation, particularly in Australia, where Osaka has had obviously the success, and Swiatek hasn't really had the same success, anywhere near the same success. So it's definitely something we'll be looking out for, obviously, because of their current rankings. It could be a first round match at the Australian Open.
Yeah, right. That's true. Yeah, so Osaka still will be unseeded with her ranking just currently at like, what, she's around 60 in the world.
I think she is 60. Yeah.
So yeah. And then I don't think anyone's going to want to draw her though first round for sure, even those seeded players.
Yeah, I think it's a case of maybe not ideal for her, but great for fans of the sport, because it means you get her in lots of popcorn matches from the beginning of big tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose beating, for her point of view, beating beating a big player like Swiatek is one thing, but I think she'll be also hoping to win tournaments. Yeah, she's not done that yet, right? So since her comeback, and that's something we'll be looking forward to. Just wonder if you have any thoughts on sort of like, I think this is like the second ranked match of the year amongst the WTA side on Talking Tennis.
Yeah.
This one was sort of, we were hoping it would be, and yeah, it's sort of more than delivered, right? I mean, yeah, for sure. It was surprising for a lot of people, including me, that was maybe a little bit more hopeful for Osaka's performances, because I think a lot of people would just sort of written her off on clay. Like she's not, especially against Swiatek. I mean, I don't think, people thought that she would do that well, certainly, but yeah, I mean, do you think it's fair to have it ranked above the other matches? I mean, we had Vekic, Paulini, Blinkova, Rybakina, and Zhang Kerber.
Yeah, I think I think Vekic, Paulini definitely is probably a close one, but
especially.
Yeah, go on.
I was just saying, it was just because it was such a big, like in Wimbledon as well, that late stage of the tournament. So
yeah, I think just from my perspective, it's more the fact that, like you say, there was so much hype for it, and sometimes when there's so much hype for a match, it doesn't always deliver, and it can be a straight sets match that like it's just kind of forgettable. But this really delivered and more. It had great shots, great moments. It had the drama, the comebacks, the fightbacks, and match point saved. It kind of had everything, and I think as well it stands out as well because really the best match of probably the French Open came so early on in the tournament, and so it just felt like such a moment in the year.
Yeah, it was definitely stood out in that sense, and I think for Osaka, it'd be hopefully. I mean, it'd be nice to see her back, certainly amongst the seeds again, and then perhaps would see her more in the sort of latter stages of these tournaments, and playing these bigger players like Swiatek or anyone else. I mean, that would be good to see. And we've also got Blinkova and Rybakina and Zhang Kerber, which was at that last one was at the Olympics, right? That was Olympics, yeah. So
Kerber's last match.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Kerber, and they're all pretty interesting stories behind the matches there. I think. I mean, Zhang Kerber. I mean, Kerber's last tournament, and then performing perhaps much better than people might have expected as well. But yeah, I think that ranking is fair enough. Yeah, I think I agree with you though in regards to Vekic. Paulini was maybe perhaps running it close, but I mean, yeah, I think just because of the it came kind of unexpectedly that it was gripping a lot of us. I remember watching it. I was on the live stream, I think, with Talking Tennis with the watch along with Damien. I remember Damien looking particularly gripped, which isn't always the case. So, like, I mean, we're all gripped, right? So, yeah, that was good to see. It was just it was an interesting match to watch for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So, I think on that point, do you have anything else you want to add about this match, about any of the other matches?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think with the I'm probably going to be talking later about the Zhang Kerber match, right? With on one of these reviews. So, I think that one is probably also interesting, and because this match, it was sort of very significant. I mean, because it was such a tight match, right? And it was so that Zhang managed to come through that you know, in a way that was, I mean, she still had a lot to do after that because she ended up beating Swiatek, right, didn't she, later on? But in a way that you could argue that's to come through such a tight match like that, it just helped her set up the, to go on and win that the gold medal in the end. And that's sort of a, we always like we talk about how we talked about say in this match, the Swiatek Osaka, like the match point that Osaka had was probably less important than like the 30-15, right? But then you could say maybe in that Zhang Kerber, she is that perhaps maybe more important than some of the later matches, just because it was like sort of, I feel like, because like in a lot of the time when players win tournaments, they have like one or two matches that are really tight and they come through it, and that sort of sets them up for that. And yeah, so I think it was one of those ones that maybe deserves to be on that top 5. But do you have any comments on what you think? Or
yeah, I think that's definitely like probably something I hadn't even thought about. Some parallels between this match and the Kerber Zhang. Obviously, I think there was also probably not a lot of expectations. Well, maybe there was expectations, but I don't think people probably were thinking the match was going to be as entertaining as it ended up being.
Right.
Given that Kerber isn't known for her clay court. Again, obviously it was her last ever tournament, so she definitely went out in kind of as entertaining way possible.
Yeah, and that's sort of tennis, really, isn't it? I mean, sometimes we just get these matches where players just surprise you, right? And it ends up being, that is what gets people on the edge of their seats, right? I mean, in this match, it was Osaka coming out and just unexpectedly in that second set, just dominating. And then, yeah, with that match with Kerber, yeah, she was just, playing like it was the last match of her career, right?
Yeah.
And then,
yeah.
And obviously, yeah, with Vekic Paulini, I mean, it turned into a fantastic match, but it was, again, huge match for both of them, right? I mean, it was, so which is so much on the line for both of them. They obviously never had the opportunity to win Wimbledon, right? So that's what they were playing for. And yeah, and Blinkova right back in it, though. I did not seen that match. So I mean, did you see that particular match?
No, I mean, I've obviously watched the highlights since, just because of that tiebreak. I think that match for me would probably be 5th, just based on the drama. Probably would be towards the top, just because tiebreaks like that don't happen ever, really, and it was so wild. But I think in terms of the quality of the match, it was probably the weakest. But yeah, it was definitely an entertaining one, and quite significant in terms of the rest of the tournament, with Blinkova beating one of the top seeds.
Yeah, that's all true. And then in this particular match, Swiatek Osaka didn't. Yeah, we'd probably have needed, a bigger performance, say, from Swiatek in that second set to sort of make it, if that was been like a really tight second set. I mean, with Osaka still bringing that level and sort of Swiatek matching it, and Osaka coming through and winning that second set, then maybe we'll be talking about a different sort of match, but or a different ranking there. But
Swiatek Osaka in whatever round of match, because I think it would be really entertaining on all surfaces. Yeah, I think we've covered pretty much everything there. I think we've really got into the nitty gritty of this match and kind of relived what was such an entertaining part of the year. So thank you, and I suppose everyone can give us their feedback and whether they agree with what we had to say.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.